What's up guys, today we're going to be going over the Sunbracer build in Destiny 2. I've seen a lot of questions asking for my build, and I made a video on Sunbracers back in Lightfall saying that after the Starfire nerf, this would be the new meta in Destiny 2 on Warlock, and I think the time has come. Sunbracers are definitely the top option, and this build will not only make everything in the game extremely fun, it will absolutely demolish anything in its path. It is so strong, you can't die, insane actor, really good boss damage, really good single target damage. This build really just has a little bit of everything. And this is by no means just a re-upload of that same build. I drastically changed it and perfected it since then. And I don't think almost a single mod is the same. And even the subclass itself is very different. So starting off with the Sunbracers, if you don't know what they do, increases the duration of solar grenades, and solar melee kills grant unlimited solar energy for a brief time. So the way this works is you simply get a melee final blow, then you have a few seconds with Sunbracers ready to move around as you wish. Then once you start, you can throw 5 in a row, and these things last forever and do a lot of damage with the aspect touch of flame, where solar grenades increase linger duration, periodically emits blobs of lava around its perimeter. So that duration increase along with the Sunbracers make these things last forever and do a lot of damage, just a single one on a target, as you see right here. So make kind of RNG with the lava blobs, but generally it takes Carl down to roughly under 2/3. I've seen it go quite a bit lower before. And comparing that to fusion grenades, 2 fusion grenades will take them to roughly the exact same spot. So just 1 solar grenade is already doing the same damage of basically 2 fusions. And with certain bosses in the game, you can stack multiple solar grenades by throwing them above the target on a wall or ceiling in a spot where the lava will fall onto them. If you throw all the solar grenades at the target, the actual solar grenade itself will not stack, just the lava blobs. So the best way to do it is throw it above and let the lava fall down. As you see, I can almost kill an entire strike boss with just basically the cost of 1 melee, right? And this will be very situational, it won't work on every boss, but the ones it does, it's obviously extremely strong. And it's not like Warlock really has too much competition in terms of exotics that increase damage for boss fights. There really are basically none on the character. There is the strength build, which I'll be making a video on here in a bit, but that's more so a build and not an exotic armor piece. There really is no competition, right? But what makes Sunbracers great is its neutral game for Actor and things like that. So looking at that, starting off with Heat Rises, we'll mainly be using this for the bottom part where final blows while airborne increases the duration of Heat Rises and grants melee energy. Combo that with Ember of Searing, where defeating scorched targets grants melee energy and creates a fire sprite. So with just those 2 things alone, you basically have the full infinite loop with Sunbracers. If you just jump in melee, generally it only takes 3 or 4 airborne scorch kills to get your full melee back. And this is only with tier 3 strength. So if you have higher, it'll probably be even easier. But you'll definitely have very easy infinite melee charges. And with those melees, we have Ember of Torches, making it so we give ourselves and our allies Radiant whenever we use our melee. And this is going to be a slot you can change. I'll show off a few other options later in the build. Then we also have Ember of Ashes to apply more stacks of Scorch to targets with our melee and all of our solar grenades. And this season, I've been using the Snap melee. I've had almost 0 issues with it in previous seasons. Both of the melees were sometimes very inconsistent at proccing the Sunbracers perk. I've had no issues with Snap at all. It's extremely consistent now and will almost always proc the Sunbracer perk, so that's definitely the one I would recommend. And now for the huge changes to the subclass and the build from my previous video. First with Phoenix Dive. Dive to the ground and create a burst of solar light that cures nearby allies. While Heat Rises is active, you gain restoration while diving and scorch targets upon landing. So what we can do is use our melee and pop one of our grenades to proc Heat Rises first. Then when we use our Phoenix Dive, we will scorch enemies nearby and proc restoration ×2 for 3 seconds. And what we can do is, usually we would be running the fragment where solar grenade final blows cure you, but instead run Ember of Empyrean, which makes it so solar weapon final blows and solar ability final blows will increase the duration of both radiant and restoration. So now with that, as we get kills with this build, with all of the infinite solar grenades, we will not only refresh the timer of restoration, we will extend it up to 12 seconds, along with the same for radiant. So now, not only does this build have insane ad clear, really good single target damage with the solar grenades, we also have restoration ×2 and radiant at all times, giving ourselves a buff and the strongest healing ability in the game. If you haven't used restoration ×2 since Season of the Haunted when it was pretty meta. Carl literally can't kill me even if he tried. As you see, he literally gave up and went home because it's literally just impossible to die with Restoration ×2. You basically have to try to die with Restoration ×2. It is really strong. So now for the armor mods and the overall build. The melee and grenades are basically already infinite just with the built-in subclass. So instead, I'm going to make the build more focused around the Phoenix Dive, getting it back faster and making it more effective. So the first thing we have on our class item will be this new mod this season, Powerful Attraction, where it automatically collects nearby orbs of power when you activate your class ability. We have Utility Kickstart and a Outreach mod. Then on our legs, we're going to have 2 lanes when we collect orbs, Installation, and Invigoration to get a chunk of our Phoenix Dive and our melee back, along with stacks on stacks. Then on our chest, we have 2 reserves or resists of your choice that I have charged up to get 4 stacks of armor charge. Then on our gloves, we have first off firepower to make orbs with all of the solar grenade final blows, along with momentum transfer and bolstering detonation to get both our Phoenix Dive and our melee back as we do damage with our grenades. Then on our helmet, we have a harmonic siphon, then double ashes to assets to get our super extremely fast with this build. So now all in all, what you do is you just pop your Phoenix Dive, which will collect all the nearby orbs and start the Restoration ×2 chain. Then you constantly use your melee and throw grenades like crazy, making more orbs, pop your Phoenix Dive to collect the orbs, rinse and repeat. And with this build, you'll find you will also have infinite Phoenix Dives that will not only scorch things, pick up the orbs, and help get your melee back. And as I use this build more and more, I kind of save the Phoenix Dive as a emergency button, like a get out jail free card if my melee doesn't get a final blow, or for whatever reason if there's like a big gap between ad sections where Restoration ×2 falls off. I will have my Phoenix Dive to restart the chain and help get my melee back. So I try not to spam it. You can, because of how often you get it, and like I mentioned multiple times, it is another thing that will scorch, do damage, and collect the orb, so it's not bad to spam it, right? But I kind of like to reserve it as a way to restart the chain if something does mess up. Because once you have the chain going, you don't necessarily need to be reproccing Restoration, you don't necessarily need to be collecting orbs. Really, both of those things are just there to help get your melee back, or to restart Restoration. But overall with this build, I mean, it has the highest accurate potential in the game, easily, and constant Restoration ×2. I mean, I don't know what else you could really ask for out of a build in Destiny 2. I think this does everything you will ever need in the game, and yeah, it's just insanely strong. So finishing out the build with my weapons, the main thing I like to use is the No Survivors with Demo and Incandescent. Demo plus the Drone Junkie would also be very good. The reason that this weapon is so good for this build is Incandescent will feed into the subclass to help get our melee back in the chance that we lose it with Ember of Searing. Then because the weapon has Demo on it with all the solar grenades we'll be throwing, you will never have to reload this weapon, which is very good. Then in the top slot, I usually use the Conditional Finality just because it is my favorite exotic in the game. Really good for bursting down the like ultras and things like that with this build. Then depending on what I'm doing, either a machine gun, a rocket, a sword, a linear, I change the slot just based off what I'm doing. And real quick, a snapshot of my subclass and my armor mods and weapons, just so you guys can see it all in one spot right here. Then as mentioned earlier in the video, if you want to drop Ember of Torches because you find yourself using mostly grenades and not your weapons, you could instead, if you never wanted to die with this build, not even slight chance of it, you can use Ember Resolve for the solar grenade final blows cure you, but I think that's kind of redundant with Restoration ×2 at all times. Or you could also use Ember of Solace to increase the duration of Restoration, making it easier to maintain and keep procced at all times, which also I don't think is that big of a deal because of the fact that you can just use Phoenix Dive to reproc if you need to, and you're giving up Radiant, so it makes this fragment even less effective because you'll only be taking advantage of Restoration at that point. And the rest of the video will just be the gameplay from the Lost Sector, which in this Lost Sector I am roughly 15 light under. As you see, they're all swords, and this build just let me run right through it. Like, it was the easiest thing I've ever done in my life, and yeah, just watch. So yeah, that has been my Sunbracers build for this season. This build is arguably the strongest build in the game right now. Let me know what you think about it down below. Like usual, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.